As two friends snorkel in the shallow waters, one of them is grabbed by an enormous saltwater crocodile. The attack is rapid, silent, and deadly. When the other turns to look behind him, his friend is nowhere to be seen. Hit that like button and subscribe right now. This is the terrifying crocodile attack on Russell Harris. Welcome to Final Affliction. Russell Harris was born and raised in the UK, but he had an adventurous spirit and loved traveling the world. When he had visited America, he had met the love of his life, Jennifer. The two of them later married and moved to Australia to allow Russell to pursue his line of work. He had secured a job as a technical services superintendent for Anglo-American mining group BHP Billiton. His place of work was Groote Eylandt, Australia's fourth largest island that lies approximately 30 miles off the coast of the Northern Territory. Although the island is mostly inhabited by local Aborigines, namely Warrnambool people, the island is home to one of the richest manganese reserves in the world. It provided exactly the kind of job Russell was looking for. Being able to live and work in a beautiful country with the climate and beaches of Northern Australia was a dream come true. The island is a reserve for many different animals. 83 different bird species live there, and there are nesting sites for green and hawksbill turtles. Despite the heavy mining on the west side of the island, Groote Eylandt is a wildlife haven and considered paradise by those who have been lucky enough to spend some time there. But there are hidden dangers. Although the beaches are covered in flowery white sand leading into the still turquoise water, sharks patrol the seas and saltwater crocodiles lurk in the shallows. In September 2005, Russell headed to the northeast of the island. He knew of a beach that was scenic and secluded. He and Jennifer were joined by another couple who Russell knew through work. The road was rough and arduous, but the journey was worth it. When they arrived at Picnic Beach, they weren't disappointed. The sand was gloriously fine, like walking on soft flour. The water was clear and a stunning shade of blue. The bay was picture perfect, and the group of four set down their belongings, laying out their towels and talking amongst themselves. The sun was high in the sky, and Russell and his friend were tempted by the water. They had brought their snorkeling gear. The sea was inviting, luring the young men to take a dip. The two girls decided to stay on the beach, sunning themselves on the towels and chatting away happily, whilst Russell and his friend headed to the water. They paddled in up to their waists before pulling their masks and snorkels on over their faces. As the water engulfed them, they dipped their heads beneath the surface and marveled at the underwater scenery in the crystal clear sea. Brightly colored fish darted this way and that. Sea anemones clung to rocks, waving with the motion of the currents, and large wrasses swam near the seafloor. It was some of the best snorkeling the pair of them had experienced, but danger was heading their way. Unbeknown to the four friends, those entering the water around Groote Eylandt do so at their own risk. Not only do sharks frequent the shallows, but saltwater crocodiles inhabit the coastal waters. They can grow to enormous sizes and are more aggressive than their freshwater relatives. In Australia, salties are responsible for between 2 and 3 attacks every year. People are cautious of entering riverways and estuaries, but few think about crocodiles when they are swimming in the open ocean. The two men snorkeled near each other, only a few yards apart. Every now and again, they would point something out to the other and dive down to take a closer look. They weren't aware that a silent and deadly predator was moving closer. It was scouring the shallows for an easy meal and had detected the vibrations of the two men swimming from far away. It homed in. Under the water, the 15-foot giant reptile swam effortlessly through the sea. Its tail propelled it towards the pair as they continued to enjoy their snorkeling experience. Neither man looked behind him as they floated on the surface. If they had, they would have spotted the crocodile from several yards away, making a beeline for them. There was no way that it could hide in waters so clear. Instead, it relied on its speed and surprise attack from behind. When the crocodile was just feet from the two men, Russell's friend dived down to take a closer look at some fish near the sea bottom, and that's when the crocodile attacked. Russell suddenly felt a sharp tug on his waist and wheeled around. Expecting to see a shark, he was terrified to see the olive green and scaly skin of a saltwater crocodile. It tugged him underwater, and immediately Russell was in a fight for his life. He had been taken completely by surprise, and his friend, who was just feet away, was unaware of the battle going on above him. Under the surface of the idyllic cove, Russell was wrestling with a cold-blooded predator with millions of years of killer instinct locked into its ancestry. Considered to have the strongest bite force in the animal kingdom, the saltwater crocodile clamped its jaws down around Russell with 3,700 psi. He tried desperately to pry open its jaws, but there was no use. The crocodile was not letting go, and Russell could feel himself growing weak. The crocodile rolled the 37-year-old over and over, writhing its body in the water, disorienting Russell. He couldn't hold his breath anymore. He could see the shimmering surface of the sea feet above him just moments before he blacked out. Seconds later, Russell's friend resurfaced. He looked around for Russell and was surprised that he was nowhere to be seen. He was puzzled. Where had he gone? He ducked his head back into the water and pivoted around on the spot, searching below him in all directions for Russell, but there was no sign of him. The two had been together just moments before. He decided to swim back to the beach, assuming that Russell had already got out. He swam to the shallows and then stood up and waded out onto the soft sand. He pulled his mask and snorkel off, wiping his face with his hand. The two girls looked up at him and asked where Russell was. That's when it hit him. Something terrible had happened to their friend. Frantically, they scoured the small bay for any sign of Russell. His friend dashed back into the water to begin an underwater search, and they called emergency services minutes later. Russell's disappearance was a complete mystery. It was as though he had vanished into thin air. There was no sign of a struggle, no commotion in the water, and no pool of dark blood which would have suggested a shark attack. Maybe he had unexpectedly drowned and been carried by the currents. A search ensued. Whilst Aborigines and mine workers searched in boats, the police took to the air in a twin-engine aircraft. If Russell had got into difficulties with the currents, then it was a race against time to find him. The search went on all day and into the next. It wasn't until the day after he went missing that his body was found floating at the mouth of 8 Mile Creek, a river 1 mile from Picnic Beach. As police officers approached the body, a 15-foot crocodile swirled in the water nearby, defending its cache. It was clear from the injuries sustained to Russell that not only had he been badly mauled by the enormous croc, but he had put up a prolonged and brave fight against it. Sadly, he wasn't able to win the fight and had lost his life in the struggle. When news hit home back in the UK, his mother collapsed on the floor. She was taken to hospital and sedated. The news of her son's passing was too much to bear. At the time of her hospital admission, she wasn't aware that Russell had been attacked by a crocodile, only that he had gone missing in the sea and was presumed drowned. Russell's sister flew out to Darwin to identify the body. It seems Russell and his friends had made a careless mistake, but as news of the tragedy spread, it became clear that he, along with many others, had heard that Picnic Beach was a safe area to swim. He had known that saltwater crocodiles lived on the island, but had been assured that none swam near that area. One of his favorite hobbies had been snorkeling, and with the water being so inviting, he was always going to take a dip. Had he known that a large crocodile was swimming nearby, however, then obviously he wouldn't have entered the water on that fateful day. It was a tragic and terrifying final affliction.